And welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Roger, it is obviously, I said this the other day, we're getting closer to Christmas than we are New Year's. I mean, it's time flies. It's important to certainly start to plan your schedule for your junior golfer. The Junior Golf Hub is a great spot to do that. I know for the northern states, it feels like February. You don't need to worry about it yet. Your advice to sit down with your junior and to plan out a schedule as opposed to kind of week of always trying to find something. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Ryan. I mean, I know we have snow on the ground right now in Connecticut in the Northeast, but the reality is that now's the time to do all the planning. I mean, we've sat down with our kids at the academy, actually, even starting back in October when schedules started coming out for the spring and summer, is going through tournament schedules and making sure that we're highlighting the majors that everybody's looking to play in, and especially those that we feel that the college coaches are going to be, having their eyes on, that kind of thing. So it really depends on where they are in their developmental cycle. So, I mean, for us, the kids who are, freshmen, sophomores, let's get that exposure out there. Let's get some tournaments playing. The kids who are sophomore, juniors who are excelling right now, we're trying to get them into the best events possible, right? And getting them ready to play in those events. And that's regional and national events. So it's been quite the stir. It's actually very interesting because it's changed over the years. I mean, I've been doing this now 30 years, and seeing how it's changed and how many more events are available. And I know our next guest coming on, Mark, who's waiting for us, but he's a new director for the Under Armour Junior Tour that's in the area. I'm sure he's getting requests already of like, what is the schedule? When can I schedule those things? So it was no events in the New England area about 20 years ago. It might have been just your local PGA events. Now it's so many events that these kids their heads are spinning, parents are spinning. Hence why we created the Junior Golf Hub, Brian, so that we can lay all of those tournaments out there and put a calendar in front of them and say, all right, now let's build your calendar schedule and share that with their coaches and share that with the college coaches, things like that. So really exciting time of the year for sure.
Well said, Roger, and a perfect segue into Marc Bayram, the PGA coach who, as you said, has had a foothold in junior development in New England for a while. Welcome to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast, Mark. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background and how you got to be sitting in this seat today?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great. You guys do a wonderful job at Junior Golf Hub, and it's a really exciting time in New England because the spring is approaching and we're getting a lot of requests, especially the tour I'm running. For the springtime, we already are halfway full with our registration, which is pretty crazy this early on. But my name is Marc Bayram. I'm originally from New Britain, Connecticut. I started playing golf when I was about 12 years old. My dad introduced me to the game. I played the Connecticut PGA Mountain Dew Tour way back in the day. I've been a golf professional for 20 years, even though I know I look young, but you know what? I've been around for 20 years coaching golf. I was fortunate enough to play collegiate golf. I played at St. Leo University, which is a Division II program in Florida. It's in the Sunshine State Conference, which is a pretty competitive conference. And then once I graduated, I turned pro. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I actually served as the assistant men's and women's coach for St. Leo for a year. And then I decided to move up north, become an assistant pro. I've now been the head pro at Timberlin Golf Course in Connecticut since 2011. And like I said, I serve as the tour director for the Under Armour Tour since 2022. And I also have two kids that compete. They're 10 and 11. So a little bit about me.
Awesome.
And I'm excited to be a part of the show. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, I have to include this. So he said he's from New Britain, Connecticut, and you probably know you're around this area too. Hard hitting New Britain, right? So that's the moniker for New Britain.
Oh yeah, hard hitting, baby, hard hitting.
Everybody knows hard hitting.
Yeah. Welcome, Mark. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
I think it's real interesting that you coached obviously college, and now you're getting kids probably before college. things are changing by the minute in the college landscape. Certainly in the Power Four, Division One. I'm sure you're following it. That from the St. Leos of the world. How much is that probably going to end up even improving that Sunshine Conference because of their situation geographically? And I know they're not quote unquote the desirable, ACC, SEC, but it's a lot better golf than people think in Division Two. Do you think that it will only get better because of the scholarship limitations?
Oh, absolutely. I kind of know what's going on in D1 where they're limiting the amount of players on each team and all that. It's going to trickle down to Division Two, especially at that, down south competitive level. Even from when I was going to St. Leo, we were the second worst team in the conference, but I think we were a top 25 national team. So it's super competitive, and it's been that way for years. And in fact, I believe St. Leo won the Division II national championship. I want to say 2016 or 15. Yeah. And these kids are really good. I mean, some of these players are trying to make it, on tour. One was, I believe, part of Golf Performance Center, John Vanderlyn. He went to Florida Southern, which is in the same conference. I mean, he's doing well on the Korn Ferry Tour. So, yes, to answer your question, I think that it's only going to get more competitive as we move along here. So I don't think, a player that's thinking, I want to play at the big schools should really think that that's a be-all, end-all. I think that they're going to get a great experience playing, even if it's Division II or even III is getting more competitive. So, all these kids are getting better.
Hey, for sure. Mark, one of the things that we try to do on the show is obviously we're trying to educate the parents and the kids who are watching, and they ask us questions all the time. One of the questions that we get, is how do I know I'm getting a good coach, and how do I know that I'm on a long-term athletic development pathway that's going to actually get me where I want to go? What is some of your advice? Obviously, you're dealing with a lot of juniors. You've got the tour. You're hearing parents coming in and asking those questions. What do I need to know about this process of playing college golf? Tell us a little bit about your philosophy on what that is, and what do you say to the parents?
I mean, it's something as a coach myself, I've learned a lot over the last few years, especially starting to coach some kids that are playing college, and then a lot of aspiring collegiate golfers. But yes, you just want a coach that's knowledgeable about the process. I think that's kind of where it starts is, sure, there's a lot of great swing coaches out there, but they may not know the process to getting recruited or getting noticed or, things like resume writing and all these other things that come into play minus your golf swing. So I think getting a coach that's knowledgeable about the process is super important. I've always been big on you want a coach that still competes maybe or has competed in the past. If you're a competitive golfer, there's other things than just the golf swing and the mechanics of it. There's strategy involved that makes a good player. There's mindset. There's things that a coach that actually puts themselves in the arena would know, a little bit better than maybe some coaches that have never played competitive golf or at the collegiate level. So, I think getting a coach that's knowledgeable about the process and also a coach that has put themselves in the arena or still does can serve as a good mentor to a young player.
Mark, we feel and obviously Roger and I are incredibly close to the junior golf landscape. We run 300 tournaments a year, funneled down to 25 regionals, then put a national championship on television. Roger and I together with Nota Begay. Preparation it's a kind of an epidemic, if you will, in junior golf because kids just don't know how to practice. We see it 365 days a year. They jump out of the car, whether it's a golf cart, parent's car, bicycle, however they get there, they go to the range. It's 5-6 wedges, and then it's how far can I hit a driver, and then it's how fast can I go out and play. As far as making kids better, obviously we believe PDI is the answer to that long term. We're implementing it in our junior tour, the Nota Begay, where every kid will do a self-assessment, and then we're actually having tournaments of PDI where the winners will go perform on Golf Channel in the national championship exempt of the tournament. You're a coach and now you run a tour, so you see it from both ends, and you have children. How does word get out? Because I get your kids are going to know how to practice, right? You're their dad. But for the thousands and thousands of others that are getting dropped off or are falling in love with this game but aren't getting the proper instruction of just how to improve, what's your message to them?
Well, I mean, one of the first questions I'll ask, maybe a new competitive golfer, student, junior golfer, is how many times they hit a 7-iron in a round. And they kind of look at me funny. They think about it and they go, maybe 2 or 3. And I say, well, how many times do you hit a wedge? How many times do you hit a putter? How many times do you hit a driver? And then, the answer is always more. So I think when they're practicing, I try to let them know, practice the clubs you're going to use a lot. Practice the driver. Make sure you're hitting fairways. Practice the wedges because you're going to miss greens. You're going to be 100 and in a lot. And obviously always putting. In terms of practice, I like tasking. Obviously if they're working on something specific mechanically, then yeah, you put some time into that. But if you feel pretty good and you want to practice, come up with a challenge. I try to give these kids, a putting challenge, a chipping challenge, driving challenge on the range, something that is measurable, I guess. So, you mentioned PDI, and I'm familiar with it enough that I know one of the parts of the test is the 9 ball flights. And I think it's important as a coach that you educate these kids what that is, why things happen. Why do I hit it low? Why do I hit it high? Why do I cut it? Why do I draw it? They need to know why these things happen. So I think as a coach, it's important you educate them. But in terms of their practice, parents dropping them off, hopefully they're getting dropped off and they have kind of a checklist of tasks they want to perform during their practice session.
Well, I don't know, Mark. I think it's interesting. I think we both come from a sports background, Ryan, sports background. I think if our parents dropped us off, if we didn't actually have to walk to the golf course or walk to the sports field, I think we tended to have to make up the games that we did, right? I mean, I think more and more people, yes, we seem to think that people go and get coached. The reality is that you still have a majority of the golf kids or kids in general just showing up, right? I mean, they don't have the advantage of having a coach to guide them, to your point of, getting some really good advice, right? Of going, I don't know where to start, but I'll start putting, I'll start chipping. And I think I was talking to Brad Faxon, this is years ago, and we used to practice together down in Grand Cypress in Florida. And I asked him about his putting, because he's known for being a great putter. And I said, well, why are you a great putter? And he goes, everyone tells me I'm a great putter. And I'm like, no, but what do you practice on? He goes, nothing. He goes, I actually practice putting less than I practice everything else. And I can tell you the truth. He couldn't hit a 4-iron or driver. He would go out there and practice 4-irons and drivers all the time. And that was his biggest problem on tour. But he could putt the lights out and he could chip the lights out. And I said to him, I said, as a kid, what was your guiding, how did you get there? Did your coach, work with you? He goes, no, he would show up at Rhode Island Country Club in Barrington and just chip and putt. And he just would actually chip and putt. And that was his game plan, right? And it wasn't until much later that he actually showed promise and went to school and played in college and had a great career, that he actually realized that, his practice plan was just, to your point, around the clubs that he used, except for the driver. So anyway, I just think it's very interesting. I think that, the guidance there, and one of the things that we're trying to do with PDI or the Junior Golf Hub is expose kids to actually how to practice better, actually give them some ideas when they go out there, wherever they are. So it is hard, I think, for these young people now, because there's so much information, not to go to the golf course and have, you said it earlier about the swing technique, right? I mean, everybody's focused on swing technique and not the skills of the game, to your point of strategy and, or how about just nutrition, things like that, I believe that we kind of miss out on the whole person development and jump right to hey, you got to have this perfect golf swing to go compete. And I think you nailed it with saying, well, it's more than that, right?
Oh yeah, gotta be. I mean,
Yeah, it's got to be.
there's a, you don't play the game on the range. You play it on the course. So you're going to encounter a different shot every single shot that you
Yeah.
have. So on the range, it's repetitive. On the golf course, everything changes. You got to adapt. So you have to have those skills too.
Yeah.
Mark, tell us a little bit about your tour. What's the goal? Is it financially? Is it you brought it in at a low cost? Is it? I mean, obviously, we all know there's kind of like the pyramid in the country. There's the AJGA, which does a great job, but they obviously have a star system. It's extremely difficult to play without a resume. All the way down to other tours that are charging $500-$600 to play, but it's really, if you have the money, you can play. What's the thought behind your tour?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned more about junior golf tours in the last 2 or 3 years than I knew about forever. So, the Under Armour tour I run it at the local level, which is New England. We get kids from Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, predominantly. It is affordable, but I consider it more of a developmental tour versus a highly competitive one. It's ages 6 to 18, so there's 4 different age divisions, and I think the younger divisions have the more competitive golfers. So the younger divisions, because we're only 9 holes, they have the more competitive golfers at the local level that qualify for the winter nationals or summer nationals. When you get to the 13 to 18 kind of category, it's more of a developmental tour for them. It's kids that are not ready for AJGA, but they're also beyond maybe playing in high school golf. Like they may be on their high school team, but they're trying to develop their skills a little more in a competitive environment. So we kind of give that to them at the local level. And again, it's only 9 holes, so it's not an all day, deal. And we try to keep the pace of play moving and whatnot, but it provides an affordable option locally, and I consider it more a developmental tour at the local level. But again, we're getting a ton of kids ages 6 to 11, 12 that are actually very competitive golfers, and you can tell that in a few years they're going to want to play the bigger stuff. So that's kind of where we fall into the junior golf tour market.
Mark, I know you had a visit with Rick and Alex recently. And I think Kyle Gallo came, right? I mean, that was great. Sorry I missed you guys, but I'm hoping you guys are talking about incorporating PDI in the developmental tour. So I look forward to hearing those discussions. So do you feel like that's based on what you were just talking about, do you feel like PDI from a developmental standpoint of helping kids learn and understand those skill bases, is that a good thing for the parents and the kids to have?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you can assess your game and come out with something valuable, that's important. And PDI certainly provides that. And there's really not a lot out there like it. It's not overly complicated because, like me, I need things dumbed down a little bit. So it's pretty easy to understand.
Me too, Mark.
And I know parents definitely want simple because when things get complicated, their mind explodes. So I think PDI is definitely the future of assessing your game. I mean, really for any age, but for junior golfers, what I see is like if you took that PDI test maybe twice a year or even quarterly, it puts a little pressure on you, right? It puts a little pressure on you. You only get, 39 shots, and they vary from driver, putter, everything.
Yeah.
And then you have the mindset portion of it, which a lot of the kids don't. They've never even taken a mindset quiz or assessment. So it'd be a good baseline for them. But I definitely think it's the future of really assessing where you're at. And then, you could take that score or, whatever the report is and give it to your personal coach, or if, it's easy enough to understand on your own, honestly, to just be able to know where you need to practice, like where your deficiencies are. So I'm excited to become certified for sure and learn more about it.
Well,
awesome.
Building on that, at jgnc.org, the Nota Begay World Championship now there will be an ongoing leaderboard for both boys and girls, every age group, for the self-guided test. So all the self-guided test is, Mark, is it's 50 minutes, download the app, you do the self-guided PDI test, and you get a score, just like you would get a golf score. You now have a tangible number. That number is apples to apples to anyone that's ever done the self-guided test. So if we're talking about Tommy Morrison, if we're talking about Rose Zhang, if we're talking about Nota Begay, if we're talking about Annika Sorenstam, all the way down to the 6, 7, and 8-year-olds that will be having their name on the MB3 PDI leaderboard. You talk about, see, I come from it from a little bit different. I picked up golf very late in life. My children play golf, but everything we do is competitive. And maybe that's, maybe that's where I'm failing, but everything we do is competitive. So now with a score, it's no longer practice for them. It's now I have something to try to get to. There's a number that I need to beat Nota. Can we keep doing this until I beat Nota? Well, it's dark out. We're using the lights of the car. Why don't we come back tomorrow? But the idea is I hate when practice becomes homework and not fun. And I think this is revolutionary for two things. One, obviously, all the college coaches are endorsing it, because now, think about this, Mark. You now have your number one player on your team, wherever you're at. You're at Alabama, you're at Oregon, you're at St. Leo. You have the number one player on your team, and his PDI score is X. And you're now in the recruiting process, and you're recruiting players that have a PDI score. Maybe it's greater than the number one player on your team. Anyone that doesn't do PDI from a coaching standpoint, that's not going to mean a whole lot to them. But just think about that St. Leo coach that now thinks he has a diamond in a rough, found a diamond in the rough because he has a tangible number that he understands what that number means and can compare it to the number one player on his team. I think, honestly, I think it's just a matter of time before PDI is talked about by every coach like yourself all the way through college and even professional golf.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think it makes it easier for a college coach to recruit. It's just another resource and tool versus like a ranking is a ranking. And, I think rankings, they hold too much weight to the parent. They're important. Don't get me wrong. I think they're probably a baseline for a college coach to see, okay, well, this kid's legit. But then it goes past that. I mean, you meet the kid and you meet the families and it goes from there. So I think PDI would hold just as much weight as a ranking. And it's good for a coach like me because I could see what, Ryan Burr's PDI score is. And I could be coaching a kid. You say you're the number one player for some big time school. I could say, hey, we got to get to there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And here's how we can do it based on your report from your last assessment. So on my end, it's extremely valuable as well as I would think a college coach.
Absolutely. I mean, even just from an accountability standpoint, is what I'm doing working? And now the player and the coach actually has some accountability to their development, right? So that's a big part of it for the golf coaches or the instructor is going, are what we're doing working to help you get to where you need to go? And we have a baseline to go. If you're trying to reach Stanford, we know that Stanford's men's team, you got to have a 78.3, PDI score to actually be looked at. And their coaches are looking for those things. So it's kind of cool. I do want to go back though, because Ryan says how competitive he is. This is how competitive he is, Mark. He put marbles down on the floor for his son to step on so he could actually sprain his ankle to go out and beat him on the golf course. That's how competitive Ryan is.
He's whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Wait a minute. Everyone's not doing that?
I may start doing it with my kids because they're getting close.
He said it was good for their balance. He said it was good for his balance, and okay.
Yeah. So he couldn't walk for a week. I mean, part of the game, right?
Well, to your point earlier though about competitive, I use TrackMan, right? And I will run an assessment every so often that I kind of created my own kind of test through there. Not the combine, but I created my own little test. And it's amazing to see these kids like all of a sudden zone in it's assessment time. Like their attitude changes. They see a score, and they're just like zoned in all of a sudden, which is great, right?
Yeah.
I wish they would treat every practice session like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's
That's the
I've
idea.
seen coaches and parents where a kid has hit it fat 20, 30 times in a row. They've tried everything in the book. They say, all right, every time you hit it clean, I'll give you a quarter. 100 in a row, right? I mean, what happened there? Did I just get taken to the cleaners? But it's fun. We love what you're doing, Mark. We wish you the best of luck, certainly with the junior tour. And how can people find you if they're they're interested in either the tour or some coaching?
Yeah, I mean, for coaching, go to pgacoachmark.com. I got a website. It's great. It's got some options, even if you live across the country, some remote options. But I run the New England Under Armour Tour, and I'm also the head golf professional at Timberlin Golf Course in Connecticut. So that is where you can find me.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Best of luck to you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you.
All right. See you soon.
Take care.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, a little bit different. I think it opens a really good conversation for you and I, truthfully, on a couple different things. For me, I think, and he kind of brought it up, but a national leaderboard, Roger. I mean, just comprehend what's happening here, and just think about the internal competition as kids log on to that with their self-guided. And by the way, you can do self-guided as many times as you want.
That's right.
I think this is going to be fascinating to watch this unfold leading up to the 6 coach guided, where ultimately, obviously, the exemptions will be handed out. But we're talking to college coaches, we're talking to players, and just everyone is like, man, we now have a way to make practice fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Fun, and it improves my game.
Right.
I mean, it improves my game. I'm actually working on skills that's going to show up on the golf course.
Because how many times have you heard a parent or someone say, well, it's so lonely as a junior golfer. You're out at the range hitting balls for 7 hours in the sun, and there's no other kids, and you're just, you're just hitting ball after. That's a waste of time, one. But now to be able to have something that makes practice, 1, you're accountable, 2, you have a score, 3, you may hit a fade all day long every day.
Yeah.
And never even try to hit a draw because you hit a fade.
Yeah.
Now, because it's part of the competition, you're going to be trying other things. It's going to be fascinating to watch, Roger.
No doubt. And actually, that brings me to, it just reminded me a little bit of watching some of the waste management yesterday, and Clark, who was on whatever, it's the 17th, the short par 4, right? And they were talking about how he wanted to hit. He normally hits a cut, and
I'd say 99.999.
Right, and he double crossed himself in hitting a draw, and he said I guess later they asked like what was going on there and what happened, and he, in his mind, he was visualizing a cut, but he also said I was set up to hit a draw, and he was confused, like his brain couldn't quite come to reconcile like what he was, and he overcooked the draw. And that's in fact what these best players do well, which is they know there's certain shots they have to hit to actually play better or score better or put themselves in the best position. And this just, like the PDI and understanding the 9 ball flights, it's not about saying you got to hit all 9. Right. It's just going, you need to know and learn how to hit those when you're in situations, so you don't feel so blindsided by the fact that you've never experienced it, right? So that's really all it is, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a firsthand story of that, where my son did hit a cut, not 99.9, 100.
Yeah.
And he arrives on a tee box in a big event that maybe 5 paces off of where his tall ball is teed is a 200-foot pine.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you hit a cut here, you're going to be right in the bunker. It's an automatic.
Yeah.
You're dead if you hit a cut.
Yeah.
And because that's the only thing he practiced. It's the only thing he did. Ends up taking a 4-iron because he can hit a draw. But now it's almost you've given the hole up.
Right.
Now you're trying to get on in 3 and get up and down for par, which, okay, that's the smart way to do it if you can't do something. But boy, it would have been nice to have practiced and had a game plan on, well, if I have to hit a draw, I worked on this with my PDI. I mean, I just, it's going to open up so much. Wyndham Clark, he won the U.S. Open. He won at Pebble Beach, hitting only a cut.
Yeah.
But you're a great example of one of the world's best players that found himself in a bit of a pickle because he doesn't have a shot with his driver.
Yeah, that's right. And that's all we're saying. The best players in the world, they just know that they have to have these shots in the bag. They don't have to use them all the time. They know they have to have that tool to unlock whatever needs to be unlocked at that moment, right? Now, I think that actually was the beauty of Tiger, right? It was the beauty of Jack Nicklaus. Nicklaus hit a cut all the time, but he knew how to hit a draw, and he knew that he could do it. He could hit it low, hit it high. He can control it. Ultimately, it's about controlling the golf ball, right? The best players who control the ball better win. That's just what happens. So, and actually going back a little bit, Ryan, I thought it was very interesting on the competition of the rankings there in PDI. It's like, boy, I almost immediately started to go, hey, I see an opportunity here to have a competition between the NB3 Tour and the Under Armour Tour. Sure. Who's going to score better, right? I mean, you're on these tours. If you're different parts of the country, and you're not playing.
Apples to apples, universal.
Yeah, apples to apples. I thought that was that kind of hit me.
2 things I want to touch on. He brought up something that really set a light bulb off. One, I don't blame the rankings and I don't blame the parents because it's the only thing that exists. So every parent thinks their son is Tiger and their daughter's Annika, especially if they're showing talent. I'm the same way. I'm not criticizing. It's just the reality of having a junior golfer. So the rankings is all you have. That's it. That's how you judge how good your kid is. You log on and you look at the rankings, and the rankings tell you who is quote unquote better than you and who quote unquote is worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
The colleges have implemented it. Why? Because it's the only thing that exists, and there's 20,000 golfers, and they need a place to start. It is not apples to apples. As we've said a million times, a 72 in Palm Springs in 75 with 0 miles an hour is different than a 72 in Connecticut in April when it's 32 degrees and blowing 15. But the rankings don't, for the most part, they don't tell you that. You're essentially going to have a 72 average for both players. And again, don't blame anyone for that being the system, but just to be able to add to the rankings your PDI score, which is apples to apples with every player, regardless of climate, regardless of where they're at in the world. It's taken a while before the next step has come, but it's finally here. And people are going to be so quick to add PDI to their ranking system because that's what everyone is going to want. It's what everyone's always wanted, Roger. It just didn't exist.
It just didn't exist, Ryan. And Mark brought up a really good point that he created his own. He was very innovative in saying, hey, TrackMan has these things. Great. It is a tool, which I think is, fantastic, right? Just like Foresight, just lots of tools out there that do these things, right? But the reality is what they don't do is look at the lead factors of, do I have the skills to hit those shots to actually play the game the way we, to actually score better. So I liken it to the idea of, it wasn't that long ago, although it seems like it has, the highlight of the NFL combine, the NBA combines now, the NHL combines, the Major League Baseball, all of those things go back to what are the underlying skills of those athletes that we're looking to draft or looking to spend money on, and what is their upside, right? And, every investment is, what is the upside here, right? So they're looking at the raw skills. And if the coaches are who they say they are, like a Bill Belichick or Nick Saban and those guys, they are looking for the skills, the raw skills that can be developed to be the best, right? And even Brady himself would say, you know what? I put myself in the best possible situation that I could be. I could go to Michigan. I got an opportunity to go to Michigan. He knew he wasn't going to start. He knew where he was because he had always done his own assessments, if you will, and being very truthful to himself about where he was. He wanted to go there for a few years and continue to develop his skills. He knew that if he went to the right team in the NFL or got an opportunity, he knew that it was just a matter of time because he was always developing, always assessing his skills. And I think that's what a lot of golf parents don't realize. And I think we put so much emphasis on the finished product, the golf score, the ranking score, and never look at, am I actually helping my junior golfer develop to actually excel at the next level? Because guess what? You go to the next level, you're going to have just better people, better players, better competition. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to get very discouraged very quickly and not develop, right? I mean, that is in fact why a lot of the portal happened, right? Is it, I can't play on the team, I want to transfer. I can't play, I want to transfer. But did you have the skills to go there and play anyway? All right.
I'll add to that is this, and just think about this for golf, because I think this is what PDI does. You bring up the NFL Combine.
Yep.
People are blown away, flabbergasted that a second or third team running back, wide receiver, cornerback, defensive end ends up going in the second or third round. Zero statistics. I don't know if why are these teams paying millions of dollars for a third string, and then the guy ahead of them that led the team in tackles doesn't get drafted?
Right.
Like, I think that's ultimately when you see PDI working down the road, is you're going to see college coaches using PDI score as much. I mean, not every player at the Combine, but you see players that are strictly taken ahead of players that have performed because the Combine says, you know what? His upside is way more than the guy that was ahead of him on the depth chart. The guy in the depth chart had a great career, but that might be it for him.
Yeah.
He may have absolutely maxed out. Credit to him, but we don't see him getting any better. Whereas the guy that he beat out that was a scrub on the team went to the Combine, and a coach is like, you know what? This kid's raw, but this is material that I don't find every day.
That's
and
right.
PDI is going to give a coach that same idea that if you're close on a guy and you look at that PDI score, one, you say, boy, this kid may have maxed out compared to, boy, this kid is just scratching the surface. He played 4 other sports because he was a great athlete. Everything's in there. If he devotes his life to golf at college and I'm a developer of talent, it's endless of how good he could be. So it's exciting.
It's very exciting.
I'm getting ahead of myself, Roger.
Oh, Ryan, I'm jumping out of my skin all the time, right? So, I mean, here's another good story, just like that. I mean, our team was out at UNLV, not to mention any names, but they had their best player going through PDI, and their team went through PDI, the men and the women, and one of the guys was struggling with chipping, and he went through the physical screens and he did not do well on the hip bridge, and he did not do well on some of the other exercises, right? The deep squat and single leg stance tests that we did. And he was the best broad jumper, right? Now, he also had some growth spurts that hit late and later as he went into college. So there was some kind of disconnection, right?
Yeah.
However, he was the longest driver on the team by a lot, right? But what he wasn't was his chipping and putting was really not where it should be relative to the other skills that he showed, right? And our team said, well, understand this exercise and let me activate this for you. And meaning, how do we engage his core? And I know that's a big thing. And now do it again. And this was after, obviously, we don't do this during the assessments, but after. And he was like, I never realized that how much that actually meant to me chipping, right? So again, it's not to say you can't get better. It's just identifying what you actually need to work on to show the improvement or see the improvement. And it was like the light bulb that went off and go, I've never thought about it that way, right? I mean, so how much better if this guy is driving it, miles, and he's chipping and putting, and now he just actually added and gained a stroke because he now knows why he's not chipping well, right?
And it may not, and it sounds in this case, it really wasn't even a golf thing as much as you guys uncovered that this is something that wasn't even your fault, that if we can go back and address it and get stronger in these areas away from golf, you're going to become a better chipper and putter.
That's right. Yeah. And most people don't realize that. They don't even think of that.
Right. I mean, that's you pay thousands and thousands of dollars to see a doctor to tell you why, and PDI. All right, we're not going to
go to a short game specialist, right? I mean,
right.
that's the other thing that we hear now all the time is, okay, well, we have the chipping specialist, we have the short game specialist, we have the putting specialist, and then we have the full swing specialist, the mental specialist. But in fact, we'll wrap that in one thing and saying, well, actually, maybe it's not your swing, maybe it's not these things. Take a look at just where your raw skills are, right? What's the raw material look like? And that's what we're trying to help.
Well, it's a fun show today. Certainly, you could see the excitement that Roger and I have. And as I said, look, March 1st. So we're in February. We're just a couple weeks away. This is going to hit the nation from the MB3 side. We're really close. And then you can begin this process to get onto the world leaderboard and see where your assessment is. So that's exciting for sure. Just a couple more weeks before that hits, Roger. Stay warm up there, all right?
We're going to try.
To see me, it was 86 degrees in Florida yesterday. Not to rub it in.
Not to rub it. Hey, I'm coming down Sunday, so get to play with our friend Noda down in Florida on Tuesday. So
all right. Well, next week looks good too. So let's keep it that way. All right.
All right, you guys. Sounds good.
To our producer and director, Michael Nick, as always, Michael does an amazing job making this happen each and every week. We say thank you to Michael. For Roger Nick, I'm Ryan Burr. We will see you back here next week with the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.